Today on the channel, it's the beginning of best of season as we're going to count down today on the channel the top 5 Pegwarmers of 2022.
The spirit of the warrior will run forever!
Welcome everyone, Kyle here, and welcome back to the channel for another edition of the Kyle Peterson Top 5 list, a Thursday tradition here on the channel. But we are getting to the end of 2022, and we are going to have a lot of lists to end the year, as we're going to do the top 10, top 5 lists of all the toy lines I collect, and then we'll probably bring all the winners together in a big battle and sometime in January to figure out what was the action figure of the year as voted by me. But I'm going to start the countdown season with a special one. Of course, we did this last year as well, and we're going to count down in this very video the top 5 Pegwarmers of the year. Of course, working our way from number 5 all the way to number 1. As usual, going to ask you guys, make sure you put your list in the comments down below. And a few little caveats with this list. Of course, as usual, this is my list, so put your list in the comments down below. But everybody's area is different. I totally understand that. What I see here in the Midwest is totally different what you see in Singapore or Japan or Detroit, Michigan, for example. Everybody's got different Pegwarmers. I gotta think a lot of us are gonna have the same people on our list, but this is my area. I travel a good 8 states on a fairly regular basis. You see my figure hunting videos every single Friday here on the channel, and a few bonus ones along the way as well. So you kind of know what I see around, and over the last year, what I've seen around a lot in the different stores, and I can only go off of what I've seen. So this is my list, my top 5 Pegwarmers for 2022. Gonna ask you guys again, make sure you put your list in the comments. Make sure you put them in order. That is the hard part. That is the fun part. But it was a wild year in 2022. There was a lot of different Pegwarmers from a lot of different lines. We got some old favorites coming back here into this line. So without further ado, let's kick it off, and let's start the top 5 Pegwarmers of 2022 off at number 5. All right, we kick off the top 5 list at, of course, number 5, the top 5 Pegwarmers of all time. And number 5 is a fairly recent entry. I think going on into next year, this one has a possibility to possibly move up the list a little bit. But this is a fairly new line that came out. And if I had to be honest, if I was going to do a most disappointing toy lines of 2022, this would be probably at the top of my list. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the Walmart exclusive McFarlane Toys Superpowers Wave. Of course, somewhat loosely based off of the old school Kenner Superpower toys of the 80s, and I gotta be honest, a favorite toy line of all time of mine. Had a bunch of those. That was my introduction into superheroes, really, was the DC Superpowers line as I was a little kid. So I had high expectations, knowing it wasn't going to be quite the same as it was in the 80s, of course. But if you saw my unboxing, I unboxed Batman and Superman, and that was it. I got rid of them. I was totally out of this line. I just feel like the value wasn't there. So it was a very disappointing toy line to me. But disappointing doesn't always mean Pegwarmer, as we do know from different lines out there. This is Pegwarmer, as this is a Walmart exclusive. So it's interesting, a lot of the Pegwarmer lists over the last few years have been store exclusives, and that's a little business hat talk because they're flooding the stores with some of these different store exclusives because they're buying in. Hey, it's an exclusive, so if you want exclusivity, you got to order X amount, and that goes for any business. We're talking food, we're talking clothing, whatever. Hey, Walmart, you want an exclusive item? Well, you got to hit our production runs, and normally we would get those production runs to Target, to Walmart, to GameStop, online stores, stuff like that. Nope, you want it just for you? Well, Walmart, you got to agree to this much, and we are seeing that currently on the store pegs at Walmart, as the Superpowers line is everywhere. The store pegs are jam-packed full. There is pallet shippers all over the place, vehicles, you name it. I don't know if there's a clear-cut Pegwarmer quite yet in this line, but I just don't think it is resonating. Yes, they are selling some. Heck, I bought 2. You guys know that. But you can fairly easily find everybody you want, especially the first wave series. We now have a Green Lantern, the Batman Who Laughs, Flash added to the wave. The Flash one actually looks the best of the bunch, but they're really Pegwarming. They're not moving. It'll be interesting what the holiday season does. You know, the holiday season hopefully cleans up a lot of toys, but however, I did just see last week, I think it was my toy hunting video, the first time I've seen these on clearance. So we're already seeing a little bit of clearance starting on these. It'll be interesting how well they clean up after the holidays. If they don't do a clearance, they don't do a markdown, or they don't get cleaned up, these are going to be there well into 2023, because we all know not just toys, but a lot of goods at the Walmarts, Targets of the world don't really sell in January, February. It's one of the slowest times of the year for retail. If they don't remove them from the pegs after the holidays, oh man, we're going to be in for a long 2023 with this Superpowers line. A great line in thought, a great line that I had high hopes for, but it just looks like it is going to be a tremendous peg warmer moving into 2023, and it'll be interesting how far the legs are with this line at the end. But there it is, coming in at number 5 in the top 5 peg warmers of 2022, the McFarlane Superpowers line. All right, we march on, we continue on, and we're at the number 4 spot in our top 5 peg warmers of 2022, and this time we take a trip to Target. We just left Walmart, we're heading across the parking lot, we're going into Target. What are we going to see? And we're seeing an interesting one. Now, this one wasn't a moment in time of length. It wasn't one of those ones that sat on the pegs for 9 months, 10 months, whatever it could be. But this one came in, peg warmed extremely hard, possibly the hardest peg warming for the minimal amount of time, if that makes sense there. But what am I talking about? We're going to Star Wars. We're going to the Black Series. We're going to the Target exclusive Skiff Troopers. We know Target has exclusives, different variants of paint, and they had Skiff Trooper just for Target, of course. And it was a repaint of an earlier version that was a peg warmer, not to the obscene levels, but it was definitely a peg warmer. Then we get a price variant on this, as it was like actually I think it was $26.99 on the pegs. So an absolute ridiculous price, a repaint nobody asked for, a peg warmer to get to begin with. It's just a recipe for disaster, and that's what that was. There was about a short window of time for a month. Now these peg warmed in, usual quantities, 3, 4, 5 on a peg. All of a sudden, the influx began. Target stores, you saw them in my figure hunting videos, end caps full of these guys, just plumb full. There was one store, I counted 200 of these at just one store, and this was the Skiff Trooper, and it was down to a $7.97 price point. Now, I don't know what happened to all these. There was still a ton. Obviously, they sold a few at the $7.97, decent army builder price, of course, but I think a lot of these finally just got dumped off. I would not be shocked if we don't see like the Rosses, the TJ Maxxes, the Ollies of the world flooded with these fairly soon. Because even at $7.97, they were not setting the world on fire. But it came in as a peg warmer and just kind of lingered there a little bit like peg warmers do. Then an influx came, I got to imagine, from Target corporate, maybe all their online stuff, who knows. An influx came to many, many stores for about a month, and then they went away. But they peg warmed in such strong numbers. When you have 200 of one figure on an end cap, that is something special. And that is the biggest amount of a peg warmer I think I've ever seen in all my years. I've never seen 200 of one figure right there on a whole end cap. So a very interesting one. And then now it is being re-released again, I believe, in the Andor set. So I don't know what we're doing, Target. Target loves a Skiff Trooper. They must have some money in on some Skiff Troopers. Who knows what's going on there. But the Skiff Trooper, a big, big peg warmer. We're putting him at number 4 in our top 5 list. All right, we're at the halfway point in our top 5 peg warmers of 2022 countdown. You got your list together? Make sure you put it down in the comments below. But number 3 is an old favorite of the channel, possibly our favorite ever on the channel. She's a girl that promised to never change. She promised never to leave. She said she would dance across the sand, dance across our hearts for eternity. She is the lovely Rio from AEW Jazzwares and the Unrivaled line. Rio, a constant in my life. As long as I've been doing fig hunts on this YouTube channel for 2+ years now, Rio has been a part of it. She is an eternal peg warmer. We'll see what happens to her in the future. She's coming near to the end, but she hung on long time. She is the longest peg warmer in AEW history. It doesn't matter if I go to Targets. It doesn't matter if I go to Walmarts. It doesn't even matter if I go to some of the GameStops. Even at this late point in her peg warming career, you can still find her in numerous locations. That is a peg warmer Hall of Fame, and there's got to be a Hall of Fame spot. Rio is going to be there. Now, remember last year, she was the number 1 peg warmer on this list. So she came down a little bit, as she should, but she is still here. 2 years strong, out on the shelf pegs. Just amazing stamina by Rio, an all-time legend, an all-time great. And I would love it if Jeremy Padawer and the AEW team, now that she's coming to the end, if they just re-release this figure, but in that blue gear, instead of the pink, it's the blue. Let's re-release that. Put that back out and see if we can get Rio for like 4 or 5 years consistently on the peg. I would love to see it. It's an interesting figure. It's not the best in the head sculpt department. We do know female figures in wrestling have a little trouble selling. I think if they would have switched it and went with the chase head on there, that would have helped the figure a little bit. But Rio is great to visit. I love seeing her. I love saying hi. Some of my stores have like 5 or 6 every time, plugging the shelves, never moved. Can you imagine how much real estate and how much money was wasted by having those 6 figures there on the pegs, not moving for well over a year? It's just absolutely insanity to think about. But like I said, she's moving her way down the list. I don't expect Rio to be on the list next year in 2023. Stranger things could happen, but I don't expect it. But I would not be shocked if this time next year I still have a store or 2 that still might have a Rio on the pegs. In the weekly figure hunts, we'll keep track of that. We'll see what's going on. I can see a lot of people saying, Kyle, what about China? Why is China not on this list? And that she is. She is a good honorable mention. I almost thought about putting her at number 5. But once again, she is a Target exclusive. Really, she wasn't at Walmart's and stuff, and she's been gone from any other place outside of Target's. And really, Target's, she seems to be totally gone from the area now. At least my area, and that's that list is my area. But China was right in there. She was probably a strong number 5 or number 6 is where I looked at with China. But she seems to be gone at this point. So I'm not going to quite count her, and she didn't peg warm, at least in my area, at the quantities Rio did. So an interesting one. China and Rio battling the spot, but Rio comes out victorious, and we knew she would. She's a tough little cookie, that Rio, for sure. But there it is. Number 3, favorite of the channel, Rio. All right, we're at the number 2 spot, in our countdown here, and this was one of those victims of COVID here at number 2. COVID, it messed up a lot of things, as we know. It also messed up our action figures, be it distribution, be it peg warmers, be it empty pegs. Say what you want. It made a lot of people come into the hobby, that we've seen a lot of people leave the hobby here in the last 6 months or so. So COVID wreaked havoc with the whole world, all the way down to the action figure game. It also wreaked havoc with the movie industry. People obviously were not going to movies. So a lot of movies were delayed. Shang-Chi was a perfect example. The figures came out months and months before the movie. Movie finally came out. They were off the pegs. All kinds of issues with that. Well, we also saw that with the number 2 selection here in my top 5 countdown. And what are we talking about? Your favorite and mine, the Eternals. Now, the Eternals, COVID really hurt this movie, delayed the movie. The figures were announced like 2 years, and we even saw leaked pictures. I think there was a guy on Mercari selling the lineup for like $2,000, like literally a year before they came into pegs. So we knew they were coming. It was one of those like worst kept secrets ever. The Hasbro team never talked about it, but pictures have been out there forever. They started to finally hit stores. Walmart had an exclusive. Target had an exclusive. All points in between had figures. The figures didn't quite line up with the movie. Obviously, they peg warmed through the movie time, so everybody had a chance to get them. And they were everywhere. They were at GameStop. They were at Walmart. They were at Target. Toys R Us's, I'm sure. If you got a Toys R Us, if you're one of the lucky ones. All the online stores, the Amazons. And deals started happening. I mean, currently, you can go to a lot of GameStops. Seems like the Eternals are pretty much gone from Target and Walmart. A few instances, they're still hanging around the clearance aisles. Some of the ones I travel. But for the most part, they are gone. They are still at a heck of a lot of GameStops. GameStop's running 50% off clearance. You can get these for $5 a piece. Some of those Eternals have been there for months at a time at $5 a piece. It's just not working. This Eternals was a very, very tough set. It was just a lot of humans, and a lot of people don't have a love for the Eternals like they do the Avengers, the X-Men, for example. So it was already batting from behind, already had some trouble from the get-go, but then the amount they shipped out to stores, the amount of fans that chose not to buy them or waited for clearance. Can you believe this, Kyle? I'm not proud to admit this, but I paid $20 a piece for these Eternals. I could have saved so much money, but it is what I do. But, looking at them, though, a little bit, they aren't terrible figures. They are better than I expected them to, except that Sprite. That Sprite's just got a punchable face. But the Eternals wave was a lot better than I anticipated it to be. That Crow figure was pretty good, but it did not resonate. It did not resonate at all with the action figure buyers, the toy buyers, kids, adults, anything out there. It is one of the most panned movies, and once again, like the figures, a little bit better than expected. I thought the movie, I went in thinking it was going to be the worst movie ever. It wasn't great, but it was better than expected, so I guess if you have your anticipation is low for it, maybe it'll be a better movie. That's how it was for me. The Eternals peg-warmed everywhere, and they're still peg-warming in spots. Coming down to the end of it, of course, I still see a few out there, like I said, at the GameStops primarily. But an interesting dynamic, I should say, on the Eternals. And just the way of COVID, the movies, the action figures, all playing a part in together to make these one of the biggest peg warming waves of all time. So much so, it came in at number 2 on our 2022 top 5 peg warmer list. All right, the time has come. We're at the end of the countdown here. We're going to truly find out what the number 1 peg warmer was of 2022. But first, make sure you like this video. You made it this far, you might as well. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the old notification bell, as we're going to have a lot of these countdown videos to close the year. You don't want to miss one. As you know, everything on this channel moves really fast, as I do 2 or 3 videos every single day. By that notification bell, you won't miss it. Because I know somebody, maybe you out there, you on the couch, you might say, hey, Kyle, I missed your top 10 AEW figures of the year. Well, you missed it. It was 5 days ago. So you got to hit that notification bell. You don't want to miss a video. Of course, Patreon as well. Great way to support the channel. But you'll get all these videos much, much earlier than traditional YouTube, as I'll be filming a lot of these. They will be up, and I'll slowly release them over the month of December into January, even a little bit of November, as you're seeing right here, right now. So without further ado, let's get to the number 1 spot. And there was no doubt in anybody's mind. I think we all know who number 1 is. And it's safe to say, I would say he's number 1 across the country. Who am I talking about? We're talking about Cape Season himself. We're talking about Billy D. Williams. We're talking about Lando Calrissian. It doesn't matter if we're talking Star Wars Black Series, Star Wars Vintage Collection, Star Wars Archive Collection. Billy D. Williams, Lando Calrissian, he is going to be there, and he is going to be wearing a cape, except the Archive Collection, of course. But we got Lando in the Star Wars Black Series well over a year ago. A fabulous figure, a tremendous figure, a favorite figure of last year for me. But for whatever reason, Cape Season didn't take off like we all hoped it would, or how Hasbro probably hoped it would. As Lando Calrissian in the Black Series, you can find that basically at every Target and Walmart in the country, or I should at least say the Midwest, but probably the country. And then all of a sudden, shortly after, Lando was visited by a smaller brother, a Star Wars Vintage Collection brother, of his classic Empire look with the cape and all that. One of the classic wardrobes of Lando Calrissian. So he was ventured. We had 2 Landos, the double Lando. It was like the double rainbow. We'd say, Lando, he's everywhere. It was a fabulous, fabulous time. But then there was a third. It was like 3 Men and a Baby is what it was like. We added that third one, the 3 Musketeers, hanging out on the shelf. We got the Archive edition of Lando Calrissian, a re-release of an Eternal Peg Warmer from years ago. Let's bring it back out. And now, currently on the store shelves, we're getting triple Landos on a daily basis. And it's going to last for a heck of a long time, especially with the Black Series 1 and the Vintage Collection out there in heavy numbers. The Archive, not quite as heavy, but he's there. He's lingering. He might be a peg or 2 behind, but he is definitely there. But then we look to the future here. We do know there's another Vintage Collection on the horizon of the young Lando Calrissian. Donald Sutherland, is that his name? Is he related to Kiefer Sutherland? I don't know. But he is coming to the Vintage Collection, and we're going to see him. And I think we're going to have 4 Landos on the pegs at one time. But we're not done yet. We are not done yet, because it sounds like very soon, probably in the next month or so, the Return of the Jedi throwback carding is coming to the Black Series. And we're getting that Archive Edition Lando Calrissian put on that card. The exact same figure re-released on a different card. So there is possibly, come January, February, we may see 5, yes, 5 different Lando Calrissians on the pegs. Absolutely wild, absolute insanity. I've never seen anything like it. Obviously, last year, Rio Mania ran wild. I didn't think anything would ever top Rio Mania, but Cape Season was ushered in. As we all know, Cape Season is just a short window. It's a little bit of spring, little end of winter, early spring. Sometimes people like to bust them out late summer, early fall. It's perfect Cape weather, but Lando has single-handedly changed the seasons. He is just moving needles left and right, and now Cape Season seems to be a year-long event, and it could be a multiple-year-long event. I would not be shocked if we're sitting here a year from now and Lando is in that top 5 list, much like a young Rio. So Lando Calrissian, I salute you. Billy D. Williams, I salute you for what you've done for action figures. Just an absolute wild time as Lando Calrissian taking over the action figure aisles, especially the Star Wars section. So I gotta imagine a lot of you guys had to have Lando on your top 5 list. I don't know, is there anybody out there that wouldn't have Lando in the top 5? I think everybody's got to have Lando in the top 5. But it's an interesting one. It's an interesting conversation. As I said at the top, this is my list. This is my area. And it's a pretty good chunk of change change. I travel, as you guys know, in my figure hunting video, so I see a lot going on out there. But far and away, Lando Calrissian sealing the deal in multiple formats. Multiple. I could have really done him as number 1, number 2, number 3. I didn't want to do that. Thought we'd lump them all in together. Lando Mania running wild in 2022. Will we see him into 2023? I guess stay tuned, we will find out. But let me know your list. Make sure you put it in the comments down below, and you got to put them in order. Like I say, that is the fun part. Make sure you like this video. You made it this far. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the old notification bell. Don't forget about the Patreon. Don't forget about Pro Wrestling Tees. 2 ways to support the channel. And also, you can hit me up on social media. SirPaul64 over there on Twitter. Instagram, _Kyle_Peterson. So for Lando Calrissian, Cape Season, and all the Pegwarmers, I'm Kyle, and I'll see you guys all real soon.